What's up, guys? Dom from Team Teal dropped into the stream and shared a D&D green text that was the inspiration for the in-game yellow dragon. Here's my interpretation of that text, but if you want to read it yourself, you can find it in the link in the description. Okay. What the fuck is a yellow dragon? My friend is the worst player in the world, which is fantastic, because my DM is the worst DM in the world. Is that Dungeon Master? Is that Dungeon Master? Like, are we doing, this is like a, D&D thing? Though I barely knew the rules of the game, the two of them invited me to play with them. The rest of their group had left the game, and they wanted at least the third person. So that card just happened to be passed by me, okay? This was all because they had learned that I had played D&D before. Now, I'd only played D&D a few times, and nothing recently. They were always spur-of-the-moment, one-shot adventures that I just happened to join, because everyone in my hometown circle of friends wanted to play it. Dude, that is kind of weird if, like, you're... I only knew one person growing up that actually wanted to play D&D, and I knew, like, a bunch of people that were like, yeah, let me try D&D, and then they realize it's like a full-blown roleplay game. Like, it's so much more than just a regular game. Alright. Though they were dry and dull at times, I read them cover to cover, committing as much to memory, purchased the core books as I could, using my past game experience to help prioritize into what to memorize. Most of you can already guess what a waste all that was. Okay. Our DM asked us for 5th level characters. I don't know what that means. And I decided that even though I didn't really like dwarves that much, shitty decision, dwarves are awesome, they were at least normal enough to be readily approved. Also, Dom, this is a great caveat for me to tell you. The ring of the dwarf, alright? We can become a chicken. We can become a sheep. But what if we could become a dwarf? Just keep that in mind as we move through this. I didn't really like dwarves that much. Again, shit decision. Dwarves are awesome. They were at least normal enough to be readily approved. For a class, I considered being a cleric, but in the end of the day, I didn't think I'd be able to realistically portray one without knowing more about the gods of the campaign. That's really intimate. That's really intimate to be with the game, to know all that. Do most D&Ders know that much? I don't know. And the DM did not want to put too much focus on them. In the end, I decided to play as a fighter and named my dwarf GRUEL Warnstone. Alright, that's a pretty good... Listen, my go-to name as a dwarf is Battlebeard, alright? Iron Gut, Battlebeard, something along those lines, right? You need to have, like, a good dwarf name. When I arrived at the DM's house, I was a little taken back by the setup for the game. We were playing in his basement, standard, which had a low ceiling that was made even lower by black paper streamers that must have been from some party long ago. Okay, got you. Though there were plenty of chairs, they were all pushed against the walls with cushions removed, spread around the floor, yada yada yada. Our DM strode into the room. I love that he strode into the room because he's taking it so seriously. Settled himself into a thick pile of pillows and beckoned me to come get comfortable. Is this a female or a male? I sat upon a cushion, feeling nervous and awkward, wondering where I was supposed to roll my dice and where the miniatures were. Our DM asked for our characters, and I handed him my character sheet. He glanced over it, frowned, then passed it back without a word. He then turned to my friend and asked what his character was. He started out by saying he had it all memorized in his head and hadn't written out of it down. Bad start, but my gut told me, yeah, that's pretty trash. The character of Leobarapu, a wizard ninja. He said that he looked human, except for his red eyes and fangs, but was actually a half-drow, half-ogre. A half-drow, half-ogre? Have you seen a drow and an ogre? Those things don't bang, dude. Bad history. Those things don't bang at all. And he's supposed to be a wizard ninja? When's the last time you saw an ogre wizard? Shit. Though none of them managed to successfully explain why he was a wizard or ninja. Yeah, I can't either. Though I can't really blame him for not being able to satisfactorily explain being a half-drow, half-ogre. That's what I just said! Wait, we're on the same page! We're on the same page! I'm thinking what this guy's thinking. He's not using his brain at all. That's like saying I'm like half-man, half-giraffe. And everyone's just gotta be cool with that. When he was finished, our DM listened intently, asking questions about odd things, okay? While I tried to keep track of how many family members he had saved, killed, and slept with? The fuck? Is this what people do in D&D? This is like so much. When he had finished, I was starting to understand why the rest of the group had left. My head hurt, and I was thinking about all the powers and spells he had mentioned casually. Cringe, yeah. Many of them were definitely in no books and purely of his own creation. The DM turned to me expectantly and asked what my character's history was. I decided that GRUEL was a recently retired miner, standard as a dwarf, who wanted to spend his last few years living in an adventure in a clumsy attempt at recapturing the essence of his lost youth. Dude, that's a good storyline. This guy was good. GRUEL did a good job. And I told the DM that. He waited as if expecting more, but then turned away before I could pad up his backstory a bit. After jotting down a few notes in a tiny notebook, okay, you're just being mad now, our DM started to introduce us to his world, the world of Gigantus. In Gigantus, giants are giant assholes. Another bad start, by reckoning. To express just how big of an asshole these giants were, our DM explained that they were honor-bound to destroy any man-made structure that would allow a human to stand taller than them. This meant that the shorter giants would go around attempting to smash wagons, the large giants would tear apart houses, and the largest would lay siege to castle and towers. We were starting off in the ruined remnants of Castle Konchaki. In the middle of the night, the tallest of the giants had single-handedly smashed apart the castle, leaving only the people who could survive having a castle fall apart around them. Leobarapu. Leobarapu. Dude, how do you even say that name, dude? What this guy did was he got baked, put a bunch of things in a hat, and pulled out what sounded best. And, didn't think any of it through. He just, pulled out, he was like, this sounds good, that sounds good, this sounds good, even though it was all crap, alright? Okay, so their two boys survive after the castle gets destroyed. These are two other players that aren't the DM. Leobarapu was pissed. Even his player was pissed. He started yelling at how unfair it was and how he hadn't given a chance to fight against the giant and how he was going to feed him to the Spider Queen, probably another made-up character that nobody really knows about, until I decided it would be a good chance to try out my best dwarf impression. Great. I think that whenever you're in an awkward situation in life, whether it's D&D, you're breaking up with a girl, or you're trying to reject somebody, bringing up the fact that you're a dwarf and doing the best dwarf impression you have probably works really well. So I think this was a good way to diffuse, the tenseness of this situation. There's nothing we can do about it now, Gruel said in a gruff voice. Oh, shit, sorry, hold on. There's nothing we can do about it now, Gruel said in a gruff voice. Nothing except to seek revenge and recompensation. He wants compensation. I think that's what he wants. Shut up, Gruel, Leobaru said. You're just a dwarf going through a midlife crisis. You don't understand anything about true pain. I was surprised by how much that stung. Because he didn't understand, guys, what people leave out of the textbooks, right? The things you don't learn in history were the struggles that dwarves face when they're growing up, dude. It's tough out there. They get hit with rocks. They don't have balls for fun. They play games where they throw stones at each other. They mine shit. It's grueling. It's awful. His name's probably Gruel for a reason. GRUEL. Anyways, it was several different layers of hurt. I chose to ignore how he had pushed aside my well-meaning advice, how he had insulted my character's backstory, how he claimed that his only demented character understood pain. His dogshit character understood pain because he was some fucked up hybrid of two types of creatures that can't bang. He's gonna live with pain his whole life. Unreal. GRUEL was hurt because he knew full well that he was going through a crisis. Alright, so now, okay, at this point in time, GRUEL has started referring to himself as GRUEL, right? This is GRUEL, the character, the person, is now referring to himself as GRUEL. So GRUEL says that GRUEL was hurt because what he knew was that he was going through a crisis, but there was no way he could admit any of it out loud. He was a gruff dwarf, and he kept that sort of business to himself. Again, most dwarves, they don't tell you about this, but dwarves are very conservative with, revealing private information. To give you, if you've seen Parks and Rec, Ron Swanson is like a dwarf. He's like a dwarf. That's basically the best analogy I could give. Sulk if you want, boy, GRUEL said. I see footprints big enough to bathe a mule in, and I intend to follow them. If he actually brought up mules in this D&D session, that is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Alright, I love that. Sulk if you want, boy, GRUEL said. I see footprints big enough to bathe a mule in, and I intend to follow them. Our DM didn't ask me if I had the track feet, or even to make a survival check, which I guess was just because the tracks of a giant were so easy to follow. GRUEL had made it almost out of sight of the ruins of the castle before Leobarapu caught up with him fuming.
You don't get to make the decisions without me. Understand? He said, glaring. Here's my thing, dude. Like, when he says he's glaring, does he mean like the dude across the table from him is glaring at him? Like he's furious that this guy decided to go on an adventure? Like, when you're playing D&D, it's supposed to be a fun time. What this guy's saying is these people are getting actual ass mad. They're legitimately upset. Okay, let's see here. You don't get to make decisions without me, understand? He said, glaring. I don't recall marrying ye, GRUEL said. Here's what I'm thinking. Honestly, if the narrator is a girl, it feels like she's being kind of harassed and she's like using the roleplay to like juke around it. That's my original understanding of this, all right? We followed the tracks into the hold on. I don't recall marrying you. That's so good. You won't even recall your own name if I decide to slip you some green lotus potion, Leobarapu said angrily. Okay, the RP is getting serious. I don't know what that potion does, but I assume it's a bad thing. Or if I give you red lotus potion, you'll be dead in a second. I took a moment whether to wonder this was just a bluff meant to scare me, but ended up deciding it was best to not find out. Probably true, and to be honest, at this point in time, I wouldn't accept any drink from the individuals at this table. Whether it's red or green or any non-normal drink color, like if it's not water, I'm not accepting it from these guys. So let's see here. We followed the tracks into the forest, and we were promptly ambushed by 3 dragons. My eyes grew wide as the DM described them, since I knew full well that 2 5th-level characters had no chance against a single adult dragon. What the fuck is a yellow dragon? Guidelines. I waited for him to describe what color they were, and my eyes grew wider when he said they were covered with yellow scales. Leobarapu didn't seem to be concerned at all. I seem to recall that he had slain a few dragons in his backstory, though I don't remember him saying exactly how he managed those feats. Okay, so what he's saying here is he heard some Captain Jack Sparrow feats about how he, escaped off of an island by using rope that was made from hair from his back situation, and I totally get it. If someone tried to convince me they were level 5 and they killed dragons, I would also consider them incompetent, so I totally understand where this is coming from. So GRUEL prayed and hoped that there was some amazing reason that Leobarapu had managed to disregard all logic and defeat monsters that would likely kill him in a single hit, and that he would manage to repeat that feat today. Leobarapu, with the kind of tact that I expected from him, calmly shouted at the dragons, "I've killed 6 of your friends, and if you don't get out of our way, I'll do it to you." Now, what he probably doesn't understand is that dragons are creatures that don't speak any English. So, naturally, shouting at them in English is going to do what? It's like shouting at a dog, except it has fangs and can breathe fire and will fuck you up because you're only level 5. You know? The player shifted around atop his... Actually, I skipped. I waited for the DM to ask him to make an intimidation check. That's a good thing to do. He's thinking like I am. I don't think these dragons are intimidated by his shouts. Instead, the DM asked him to make a reflex save. The dragons all simultaneously released their breath weapons, what I would have expected, a stream of boiling acid, not what I expected, I thought it was fire, a stream of boiling acid with arcs of lightning spiraling around it. Okay, yeah, so he's gonna get destroyed. What the fuck is a yellow dragon? The player shifted around atop his cushions until he managed to get into a position where he could roll his dice. With a quick toss and some mental gymnastics, he managed to get an impressive reflex save of 24 from a roll of 6, which was still a few short of what was needed to not get hit by the breath weapon. As the DM eagerly began to pull out d6 after d6 until his hands were heavy with them, Leobarapu decided to reveal his family heirloom, the green ruby. Stupid fucking name for a ruby. Rubies are red, emeralds are green. If there was a gemstone that was green, you would call it an emerald because of the color, not a ruby. Green ruby, what a dumbass, dude. Green ruby, ogre drow. This guy's just smoking way too much. Which would allow him to negate one attack against him. And so convenient, bro. And so convenient. I frowned, but the DM simply asked how many times he could use it. Only once, he answered, though he sounded like he wanted to say at will. Well, no shit. But this guy sounds like he wants to do a lot of things in the game that aren't part of the game. Ignoring that it was actually 3 attacks that were hitting him, the DM allowed Green Ruby to absorb all the damage, shattering while leaving Leobarapu unharmed. Dude, Leobarapu's kind of a bitch. GRUEL stepped forward, pleading with the dragons. Dragons, we are not your enemies, and it would be a poor plan to make this man one. He has endured your deadly breath and speaks no lies of besting dragons. We merely seek to pass. Okay, so now we're going the full bluff strategy, right? Like, if you can't convince dragons to not cook you alive, you might as well block their fire and say, look, I will do that again. It's like if you've ever seen Rick and Morty where they're being attacked and they're going to get purged, and Rick throws the electric thing and fucks up the first one, and then he's like, I'm just holding a box of Tic Tacs. That's what's happening right now. They're using the full Tic Tac strategy. And I think they're going to use it really well here. I think this is going to work. And if you let us pass, Leobarapu then added, I'll fuck you up. Okay, again, so you don't have to antagonize, right? You barter with them and you go by. The DM considered all the dice he held in his hands again, an evil glint in his eyes, but he managed to resist the temptation. Putting the dice down, he lazily said that the dragons flew off, leaving us to continue on our quest. This DM sucks, dude. He doesn't seem like he understands, how to have fun. Feeling relieved, I smiled at my friend, who suddenly shot me a look of disgust when he realized something. We didn't get to loot them. I lost a magic item, and we didn't even get to loot them, he shouted, slamming his fist repeatedly into the ground. So, I guess my question here is, is the human himself, on the floor, punching the ground, screaming? Is that how upset he is? Or is this just, or do you just say stuff like this in D&D? I don't honestly know. And consider yourself fortunate you only lost that gem. Okay, hold on. I just fucked this up. We didn't even get them. Consider it a pay for the toll, GRUEL replied, and consider it fortunate that you only lost that gem. Our quest continued, us following the giant's footprints, until the DM decided to throw goblins at us. 1,000 goblins. 1,000 goblins loitering around in the middle of a path, just waiting for some adventurers to walk into them. As I tried to formulate some sort of plan, like finding a wall or a cave to use to lessen their advantages, Leobarapu ran forward, throwing out a fireball. Nearly 40 goblins died from this single attack, leaving us with only 9,900 and... That's not... Dude, this isn't the right math. 1,000 goblins or 10,000? I think he meant 960. Left to contend with. It was a trial of patience. The goblins could not hit Leobarapu, not even on a natural 20, thanks to some magical ninja ability Leobarapu had. So convenient. God, this guy's a pussy. So it just became a question of how long it would take for the half-drow, half-ogre to kill all the goblins. He was basically a walking blender, taking down 8 goblins around, though collection feat I'm certainly he couldn't have, and sometimes 40 or so when he decided to throw down a fireball. All this was being done without miniatures, don't know what those are, relying on us to simply assume that every single 5-foot space around us was covered in goblins. Dude, this DM is blowing it, and this Leobarapu guy is blowing it, and I totally understand why they have no friends that want to play this game with them. They sound like really boring guys to play this game with. GRUEL wasn't faring quite so well. He was cutting down goblins left and right, cleaving through them with his axe just as easily as Leobarapu with his magic lightning scythe. Yet though he was tough and gruff, he was still able... I love the use of gruff in this. Yet though he was tough and gruff, he was still being cut apart by hordes of goblins, and genuinely thankful that most of their attention was on Leobarapu. Just as he managed to take down his 100th goblin, GRUEL collapsed from a dagger wound, fully expecting to die. This is getting a little tough, guys. I don't want GRUEL to die. Thankfully, wizard ninjas have access to healing spells. Of course they do. It's all good. He could do anything. And he was back on his feet before he even had a chance to catch his breath. By the time there were only 200 goblins left, our DM had gotten bored. Just like we have, watching this fool do this shitty DM game. By the time there were only 200 goblins left, our DM had gotten bored. He probably realized, hey, maybe I'm a shitty DM. And decided to allow Leobarapu to kill all of them at once with a firewall by having them all squeezed together in a 20-foot radius. With all of them dead, Leobarapu, I don't even know how to say this guy's fucking name, started to loot them all, and received 1,000 pieces of copper. Unsatisfied, he also ended up having 1,000 pairs of goblin boots, 1,000 daggers, 1,000 pairs of goblin ears. He tucked all of those away into a bag of holding. That's unrealistic, bro. You can't carry that many goblin ears. Like 20, 30 sets of goblin ears max. Afterwards, it's just like too many ears, you know? It seemed like the... Where's my music? It seemed like the DM was ready for the big finale. Jeez, I wonder what the big finale is for these guys. We continued following the footsteps until we stumbled upon the sleeping giant. The giant quickly awoke and stood, and was described as being over 400 feet tall. That's probably not very hard to take down for a wizard ninja. This meant that his footprints were probably so big, so deep, you could bathe an entire pack of mules in one. What's up with them and going back to mules as your indicator of size in D&D? We brought up mules quite a few times here. I'm pretty sure that the DM didn't realize this, but this giant was bigger than Godzilla. In fact, I'm pretty sure that the giant was much taller than the Konachaki Castle had been, which I hadn't bothered to mention because I was too busy trying to figure out what the hell we were supposed to do to fight this guy. Leobarapu ran up and started stabbing the giant in his toe. He was ripping and tearing, while our DM described it as not even breaking the giant's skin. Hold on, where did it just go? As Leobarapu hopelessly continued to exfoliate the giant, the behemoth lifted up his club and slammed it down into him. The DM just grabbed 2 enormous handfuls of dice, preparing to throw them all down while I stared in horror. Then, with a desperate look in his eyes, Leobarapu revealed another family heirloom. Dude, this guy is the worst. The blue ruby, which could negate one attack. What if he was like, dude, I have a ruby, an emerald, and a sapphire in my family, and they all protect me. Fucking, why do they all gotta be rubies? Why you gotta make them all rubies? There's no need to do that. This guy's just not creative. Fucking unreal. Alright. My jaw turned to lead. Dropping so hard I pulled nearly every muscle in my face. I turned to the DM, who frowned before putting down his dice. How many times can you use this ruby? Shit, DM. Only once, Leobarapu asks, though everyone in the room knew exactly that he was carrying a ruby in every color of the rainbow. The battle continued between Leobarapu and the giant, with mountains in the path of the giant's club being destroyed, while the rubies went through orange and yellow and purple and red, black and white. He even resorted to using a diamond ruby. Don't know what the fuck a diamond ruby is. Just making shit up. Even Leobarapu knew he couldn't keep pulling rubies out of his ass forever, but he did it 10 times. He figured 10 times was enough to do it. While all the other colors of the corundum are called sapphires. What is a corundum? We'll look that up after. That's a new word for me. Then I remembered. The red lotus, GRUEL shouted. If you think you could poison a dwarf, I'm betting it could poison a giant. Alright, good. He's using RP, right? This person's bringing RP back in here. Dwarves have a very dangerous flower called the red lotus. And again, I told you, growing up near red lotus plants, that's like poison ivy on steroids, okay? It's rough being a dwarf. It's very rough. You guys don't understand the challenges they face. He's 100% right here. Leobarapu, or whatever his fucking name is, Leopara, stared at GRUEL, utterly confused, without any clues to what the hell the dwarf was shouting about. Because it's as equally as understanding as the 40 gems he's whipped out of his ass. I stared at my friend in complete disbelief, not willing to believe that Leobarapu had only been bluffing about carrying the poison when he had been carrying 9 magical rubies of bullshit. True. It's very true. This guy's kind of a dickhead. Then he started to yell at GRUEL. Oh, wait, no. Then, as if struck by the giant's club recognition hit him, oh yeah, girl, oh yeah, girl, this is a girl, I had a feeling this was a girl, digging into his bag to retrieve the poison. But that's why do we need the giants to forget something? That's the green lotus, you stupid, misbegotten son of a monkey and spider. Who yelled this at who? Oh, Leobarapu yelled this at the dwarf. Dude, he called him the son of a monkey and spider? A misbegotten one? This guy's a clown. Even with the red lotus poison in hand, we needed some way of getting it into the giant. GRUEL ran as fast as his short legs would let him, charging straight at that toe that Leobarapu had so desperately tried to cut open. Swinging with his axe as hard as he could, he slammed it hard into the toe, hoping to draw blood. Nothing. The calloused toe would not yield blood, even though GRUEL could fell trees with such a hit. Alright? God, that's so difficult to deal with. And I'm imagining an Attack on Titan situation where his toes are like hardening into crystals. Not that that's what's being explained, but that's what I'm imagining, all right? Thankfully, Leobarapu. Oh, is that it? Parabau. I don't know what I've been calling this guy. Leobarapu at least knew when it was time to attack and followed with his own strike. He kept cutting the toe, but even with his half-ogre strength and all his half-drow skill, the toe was beyond his ability. As he failed, our impending doom loomed above us. The giant's clubs soon to come crashing down and drive us deep into the earth. With death only seconds away, GRUEL took a moment to look around him. He had fled the mines that had been his livelihood, where he grew up so difficulty, through the tough times, through the Red Lotus fields, through the Rock Wars, the great Rock Wars of 1332, right? Afraid that they would rob him of everything he had in his youth if he continued to work in them. Now he wondered if he regretted his choices to leave, as he would soon be nothing more than just another one of these craters that covered the landscape. With sudden inspiration, he shouted at Leobarapu, "Leap between the toes, you fool! It's our only chance!" Without question, his companion, the wizard ninja, dove alongside the fighter, deep between the giant's immense and foul-smelling toes. The club stupidly changed its course to follow, and the DM finally got his chance to roll all the dice he had held in his hands. Bones splintering, flesh tore apart, as the giant's toes were crushed by his own club. And I momentarily feared that we too would be sharing that same damage. Thankfully, our improvised shelter held, and we managed to emerge unscathed, looking up to the giant, screaming in pain. Without hesitating, Leobarapu ran to the big toe, with its cracked and bleeding nail, and slammed the bottle of poison into the open wound. With a flourish, he slammed his foot down as well, pushing the bottle deeper and breaking it, releasing its contents. I'm excited for the finale here. I don't know what to expect, but we're coming to the finale. As the giant slowly died, the poison taking its time to course up his veins and into his heart, I realized something. Even though I was playing with the worst player and the worst DM, I was having fun. Were you really? Even though it had all been ridiculous, and could have easily been the sort of gaming horror story, by just allowing the two of them to have fun while they let me do my own thing, allowed us to have an awesome game. Kind of ridiculous. I wouldn't exactly say that. The giant bellowed as the red lotus poison reached his heart and fell over. His colossal body crushing a fair amount of the landscape. Feeling rather proud of his accomplishment, I smiled at the two in my group, and the two of them smiled back at me. In the hours that we had played, I had ended up reclining amidst the pillows and the blankets, and had to admit I had grown fairly comfortable. To conclude our adventure, out of the sky, 3 yellow dragons soared down, landing upon the giant's leg, and stared down upon Leobarapu and GRUEL. They explained that as we had slain the giant that was terrorizing the land, they were going to reward the two of us with 10,000 gold pieces. And that, if we wished, we could marry their daughters. What is up with all the interracial animals in this story, alright? Leaving me with only single thought. What the fuck is a yellow dragon? Thoughts? How was that?